Hello and welcome to Mr. Randy's Wine and Spirits. I am Mr. Randy, and we're here today with the final episode of the Benriach Tasting Collection. Now, just as a recap, this is the tasting selection Speyside. So Benriach is a Speyside whiskey. I didn't notice that before, 1898, because it's sort of subdued and into there, like normally you couldn't see it. I just now noticed that it said 1898. But we've tried the 10 original, which is the sherry cask finished. And then we tried the 12, which is the sherry and port with bourbon. Then we went back to the smoky, which is a rum cask and bourbon and virgin oak. Now we are finishing this series off with the, stick with me, 3 cask bourbon, sherry, and marsala. Creamy smoothness. Oh boy, it's creamy, it's smoky, it's a Speyside. Oh boy, layered with ripened fruit, aromatic smoky sweetness, and warming oak spice. Oh my goodness, this is probably going to be the one that does me in. So let's go ahead and focus. There you go. Whew, how are you doing today? Mr. Randy is doing fantastic. So keeping in mind that these are only the 50 milliliter sample bottles. I want every bit. I want every last drop. Okay. We're going to let this open for a bit, but that is definitely, I would probably say that's probably the darkest of all 4 of these. That is nice creek water action going on right there. What do we look like as far as viscosity? We got some, ooh, look at that. We got some pretty good legs going on. Look at that. Okay. I'm going to let that open up for just a moment longer while we go back and we reiterate that Benriach, a Speyside. You know what? I have not done enough research on the Benriach to know I have not actually. I've seen plenty of videos, especially from Mad Mick. He's definitely done a lot of Benriach. He likes this stuff, and I could see why. So while I give that a few more moments to open up, let's talk about Scotch and age statements. So the 10 was usually the standard for a decent Scotch. Now we moved up to the 12. 12 years is usually now become the sweet spot for a good, decent Scotch. As you notice that the Glenmorangie went from 10 to 12. They have discontinued the 10. They are now putting everything into the 12 as their baseline Scotch. And they did a very smart move. That was very smart because I did a video on the 10 year and I was like, kind of put me off for the whole Glenmorangie lineup. So I'm like, I had a lot of those Glenmorangies on my list, planning to get to them. That 10 year put me off. The 10 year cost a few dollars more than the 12. They are trying to phase out the 10 year and move into the 12 year, which when it comes to Scotch, I think you shouldn't go any less than 10. But there are plenty, there's a good handful of Scotch out there that are that are roughly about 3 to 4 years in age statement. Those are usually blends, but don't discount the blends because sometimes you get an amazing blend from Scotch. Just like Irish. Irish tends to wane a little bit on the blends, but I mean, you get what you pay for and you get what you wait for. So the younger it is, the less you pay for it, the meh it is. So when it comes to whiskey, patience is definitely a virtue that pays off. So Mr. Randy is ancient. I am so definitely ready to get into this 12 year. Woo. So before we get into it any further, let's go ahead and just recap This is a bourbon, sherry, and marsala. I've never had the marsala, but if they're saying it's creamy and it's smooth, layered with ripened fruit, aromatic smoky sweetness, warming oaky spice, that sounds like Mr. Randy's jam, 110%. Let's get on the nose. I'm going to need another one. Hold on. I'm trying to regulate my my expectations here. So the nose is a little bit underwhelming. It's very mellow. It's very mellow, but not bad. It's very mellow. It's more mellow than the last one. See, sometimes the 12-year-olds can be 2 years a little too much taking out of the whiskey, because the more it sits in that barrel, the more the characters change or may be leached out of the whiskey. This smells like, hold on a second. Like, it's not bad, but it's like the dial has been turned down on the nose. I'm trying every little technique that I've learned, but it's like, it's very low end, like the dial's turned way down. So, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad whiskey. It's not making me salivate, but let's go ahead and get it on the palate and see if anything changes. Okay, so the palate is better. The palate is better than the nose. Now, I'm not too familiar with the marsala, but I can definitely probably agree with the creaminess part. There is a little bit more creaminess than the other three, but there's a little bit of mellowness and smoothness that may just be sort of tipping the scale towards a completely opposite spectrum. The nose is very easy. Very easy. If you don't like something that's too aromatic, this will probably be it. It's very, very light on the nose, much better on the palate. But let's go ahead and do the finish. That's a pretty nice finish. Nothing over the top. Nothing's being lit up. It's pretty well rounded. That's nice. Nothing is sticking out. It's a very well rounded finish. I mean, everything's sort of like in the mid range. Viscosity is nice. Spiciness okay, sweetness okay, mellowness okay. Everything on the finish is relatively well rounded and nice. It's 12-year marsala. I'm going to have to do some more research into marsala. I have no idea any of that. I have nothing in my brain database is there's nothing there. I might have to go out and get something that is marsala in order to be able to understand it a little bit better. But it is very middle of the road. Nothing offensive. Nothing that really stands out. But it's like very nice. I mean, it's very nice. Absolutely. Benriach. Then there's the smoky part. There is not as much smokiness as there is in the 10-year. But the 10-year is not marsala. Very interesting. Very interesting things that are done with Scotch that I feel personally are not done with bourbon. There's some interesting things done with bourbon. Don't get me wrong on that. But Scotch just seems to hit it checks all the boxes. And then it gives you a little something to think about on the side. Bourbon, it's either good or it's bad. And more often than not, bourbon is bad than it's good. So here's a little note to the bourbon industry. Stop with the cheap crap. Stop it. Get better, do better, be better. Give us better stuff. If you give me a $10 bottle of bourbon and it's crap, I don't know what else to say. So we're going to end it on that note, and we're going to move on. So let us know in the comments, have you tried any of these? And which one's your favorite? Let Mr. Randy know. Let his watchers know. And as always, thanks for stopping by here at Mr. Randy's Wine and Spirits. You have a good one.